Hi, in this video we are going to discuss the topic of formal letters. This video includes description, types, uses, format and all the other necessary information about the topic of formal letters. First of all, the basic points. As we all know, a letter is a written form of communication. It helps in exchanging views or information, and the exchange takes place in written form. The letters are divided into two types basically, informal letters and formal letters. Informal letters are written to friends, relatives, or family members, and as the name suggests, informal letters are casual in nature. Formal letters, on the other hand, are written to officers, editors, and other such people who are generally higher in status as compared to the person who is writing the letter. The word formal literally means ceremonial, proper, prescribed. That is why formal letters are written in a very particular manner, following some rules very strictly. Formal letters are generally written to request a favor, so they should have a prescribed format. We cannot deviate from the format that is prescribed for the formal letters. The language should be very appropriate, and the idea should be presented in a very appropriate manner, in a proper manner, so that the receiver of the letter can understand the requirement of the writer appropriately. Now, there are different types of formal letters. They are written for different purposes, like they may be written to the editor. Generally, letter written to editor may include complaint about local authorities to the higher authorities about any problem which could be related to irregular supply of water, irregular supply of electricity, non-maintenance of public parks, um, increase in the cases of theft, and many other such issues. Letter to an editor may also be written to share views with public in general on any issue that may be important for people in general. Formal letters are also written to officers for filing complaints. For example, writing a letter to the superintendent of police about increasing cases of theft in your locality, or it may be in a similar manner written to any officer in any office about any particular problem. Formal letter may also be written to a business to order something, for example, ordering pieces of furniture, ordering books for library, ordering sports equipment for school, or maybe booking a room, or many other things like that. Job application is another kind of formal letter. This is also known as cover letter, where we have to send our biodata or CV to apply for a job along with this particular cover letter. Some formal letters are also written to request information about a course from an educational institute. Now, to write a good letter, or in other words, particularly for the students, we can say to score good marks in the exercise based on formal letters, there are some necessities. We are talking about formal letters, this is to be kept in mind. So, the first necessity is the format. The format should be proper. Without a proper format, a letter could not be considered a good letter, even if it has been written very nicely as far as presentation of views is concerned. For students, particularly, it is to be kept in mind that if only the format is followed properly and the content includes nothing at all, then the student is not going to get any marks for it. However, if the student has written the content wonderfully well but has failed to maintain the format properly, then some marks would be deducted and the student could not score full marks in that exercise. So, format is quite important to score good marks in any exercise based on formal letters. Second important thing is ideas. There should be many ideas presented in an exercise. An exercise based on formal letters is generally more than 5 marks. So, the number of ideas included there should be multiple in number. The ideas should clarify the situation fully well. Now, the ideas should be such that the reader of the letter would understand completely why the letter has been written. No idea should be repeated in a formal letter because repetition gives a very bad impression and it reduces the value of a letter. The idea should not include any irrelevant point. All the ideas presented in a letter should be related to the topic and no irrelevant point should find place in a formal letter. The third important thing is organization of these ideas. The ideas should be organized properly. There should be a logical sequence in which the ideas have been presented in the letter. One of the most common examples is that a formal letter should be presented in 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph should be introduction to the letter. The second paragraph should include details, and the third paragraph presents the conclusion for the letter. And the change from one paragraph to another should be logical. The idea should be presented in such a sequence that they appear logical to the reader. It is needless to say that spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes are unacceptable, and no student could score good marks if there are lots of spelling and grammatical mistakes. Now, all the points that have been discussed here in reference to formal letters are actually applicable to all the writing exercises, may they be articles, may they be report writing, or debate, or speech, or uh, whatever. The format, the number of ideas, and the organization of ideas are important for all the writing exercises. Now, first of all, let us discuss the format part. On the very top, in a formal letter comes sender's address, and this comes on the left hand side of the page. It is followed by date, then the receiver's address. Sender is the person who is writing the letter. So, in an examination, the student's address will be the sender's address. Sender's address and receiver's address are generally mentioned in the questions that are given in the question papers. So, those addresses are to be used here. After the subject is to be written. Subject means the title of the letter. Subject gives an idea to the reader why the letter has been written. Then salutation is there, where sir or respected sir is generally mentioned. The content is to be divided into 3 parts. First paragraph gives introduction, second paragraph gives details. It includes maximum number of ideas as far as the letter is concerned, and the third paragraph is conclusion. Finally, we sign off. Yours sincerely followed by the name is the way of signing off. Name is written and below it designation is mentioned in brackets if the designation has been mentioned in the question. Otherwise, there is no need to mention the designation. The name again is given in the question and the same name is to be used. If the name is not given in the question, then ABC can be used or XYZ can be used as a name. The student should avoid writing his or her name particularly if the student is appearing for board exams. If the student also wants to sign the letter, then the signature comes above the name. Now, this is a format that is followed whenever a letter is to be written, may that be for appearing in an exam, or may that be in your usual life. So, the format of the letter would always be the same. Now, let us discuss the main points about format yet again, with all the details and the precautions to be taken to avoid getting marks deducted. The first part is sender's address. About sender's address, we have to keep in mind that the name is not mentioned here, because the sender's name is mentioned at the very end when we sign off, and no repetition is supposed to be there, so that is why name will not be mentioned here. The address is generally written in 2 to 3 lines. We should never mention the address in a single line, it does not look appropriate. No comma is used at the end of either of the 2 lines, or even if there are 3 lines, then no comma, no full stop is to be used at the end of any of the lines. Regarding date, there are 2 acceptable formats. One of these 2 formats is to be used to mention the date. For example, 24 September 2020, the name of the month in full, the digits of the year in full, or otherwise September 24, 2020. Again, the name and the year are not to be shortened, they are not to be abbreviated, and comma is used in the second format only because there are 2 figures side by side, and to differentiate them the comma has been used. We will not use any comma in the first format. Now, some formats which are not acceptable and which many students generally use have been shown here. September 24, 2020, this one actually is the acceptable format, so you could ignore this part. The other 3 formats, they are not acceptable. 24/9/2020 with obliques in between, or full stops in between, or dashes in between, or abbreviating the name of the month, these are not acceptable. The word date is not written. This is also to be kept in mind. Now, receiver's address again is to be written in 2 to 3 lines, no comma at the end of any of the lines. The is added before designation whenever we are addressing someone in the address, for example, the manager, the principal, the editor. The word to is not written before the receiver's address. This is to be kept in mind. This is obsolete. Earlier, people used to write to before the receiver's address, but this is not used any further. Now, regarding subject should be brief, it should be informative, it should be relevant, it should be related to the subject of the main idea to be presented in the letter. It is to be written as a phrase and not as a sentence. Regarding salutation, respected sir or sir is to be written. The content is to be divided in 3 paragraphs that we have already discussed. The first paragraph is introduction. It introduces the reason for writing the letter. It is more or less the elaboration of the subject. The second paragraph gives details. This is generally the longest paragraph because it includes maximum number of ideas, and it should include multiple ideas. This is to be kept in mind. Mentioning only one idea will not be enough to make the letter effective. For example, if the letter is to be written about irregular supply of electricity, to complain about irregular supply of electricity, then the problems faced due to irregular supply of electricity can be mentioned in this paragraph. The third paragraph concludes the letter. It sums up the main points and hope for resolution of the problem is expressed. If the letter is written to the editor, then in first paragraph we request for some space in the esteemed newspaper of the editor to share our views with the concerned authorities or with people, and in the third paragraph we thank the editor in anticipation for helping us to reach the concerned authorities or the people. Now about signing off, yours sincerely is what we use. Students generally use your or yours with an apostrophe. Both these are wrong and they are very common mistakes. Now below it comes name and designation, if designation is given, otherwise just the name will do. So here is a solved sample exercise for you. The statements that are generally given in the question papers in relation to formal letters are similar to the statement that we have here. You have noticed that students are facing enormous pressure due to the competition in academics. Write a letter to the editor of the Hindu requesting parents and teachers to help students ease the pressure on their mind. You are Rohit Renu of 12 Shalimar Bagh, Delhi. Now, whenever we get a question related to formal letters, or in that case, in relation to any writing exercise, then there are many points that we can identify in the statement itself that can be used in the solution. So, let us see what are the points in this statement that we can identify. Now, the points highlighted in red color are the points that can be used in the format part, and the points that are highlighted in blue are the points that can be used in content of the letter. Now the letter is to be written basically because we want to share our views about students facing enormous pressure due to competition in academics. So that is the basic idea that gives us the subject of the letter as well, and that also gives us the main idea around which the other ideas are to be developed for the second paragraph. Basically, we are also told that we should be addressing parents and teachers in this letter, and we should share our concern about this social problem which is concerned to all the people in general, and we have to request people in general to help students ease the pressure on their mind. The editor of the Hindu is the person who will be receiver of the letter. So receiver's address is the editor, the Hindu. Rohit or Renu is the name. So we will sign off with this name. 12 Shalimar Bagh, Delhi is the address that has been given to us. So this will be the sender's address. So here is the solution. Let us quickly have a look at it. 12 Shalimar Bagh, Delhi, as I said, is the sender's address. Date 24 September 2020. The word date is not to be mentioned here. This is to be kept in mind. Now 2 is not to be used before the editors. So the editor, the Hindu, the place is not mentioned, but we will use the same place as has been mentioned in the sender's address. So Delhi will do in the receiver's address also. Subject here is need for support to students. This can be presented in other ways also, like need for parents to support students, the pressure of academics for the students, need for help to students owing to academic pressure. So the subject can be mentioned in any words, just it should be related to the topic. Sir, I would like to request for some space in the columns of your esteemed newspaper to share my views regarding above mentioned subject with people. So as I told you, if we are writing a letter to the editor, then the very first line requests the editor to spare some space in his esteemed newspaper. We also give some introduction to the topic in the first paragraph. The modern age of competition puts enormous pressure on students trying to prove themselves in the field of academics. In such circumstances, they need support from their parents and teachers. So we have introduced the issue. Now let us check the other important things. The competition in the field of academics is at great heights at present. Students need to devote exceptional efforts to prove their capabilities in the field. This leads to mental stress as well as physical exhaustion. One particular aspect of the situation is that the expectations of the parents and teachers add to the mental stress a lot, while what is actually required is constant support and motivation by parents and teachers to enable the students feel comfortable with the demanding situation. Now, this is to be kept in mind that this line should not actually be changing the paragraph, it is just the printing mistake. So, avoid this. We have to present our letter in just 3 paragraphs. This is to be kept in mind. Parents, particularly, need to understand that their child is meant to perform at his or her best and not to compete with the rest of the students. Moreover, a student cannot perform at best if mental stress is involved in the process. So, basically, the purpose for writing the letter is to convince the parents and teachers that students are under enormous pressure, so they should not be pressurized further. In fact, they should be lent moral support. So that is what we have included in all the points that we have made part of our second paragraph. So, through the widely read columns of your newspaper, I would like to make an effort to inform parents and teachers that display of patience and support on their part is going to do a lot better for the child's performance than strictness and criticism. I would like to thank you in anticipation for enabling me to reach the people with my views. Yours sincerely, Rohit. No designation is mentioned, so we won't mention the designation. So that's all for the topic of formal letters. Thank you very much.